to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal.
Protonic reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rock about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
The thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool. I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It's only one I choose to devote my life to. That's okay.
It means something. It means something.
And they got away.
Yeah, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Protonic Reversal.
That's like a science thing, right?
That's right. It is a science thing. It is a science place. It's a scientific fact. We're all up in your face. It is time once again for the one, the only Protonic Reversal. Welcome to it. Additionally, welcome to it. A little earlier than we normally do this show for alert live listeners. This is, of course, to accommodate tonight's very special guest, which I'm very excited to have on. One of which is returning, one of which, weirdly, I've never had on. So really stoked to talk to Sohrab and to Mikey from the great SAVAK. And we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about their new record. We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff. And I'm excited for you to check it out. And I'm excited, in fact, to do it myself. So I'm trying to do this thing. I kind of hate it. It's the thing that like all the other shows do, but I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to power my way through it because all these other shows do it and it seems to do well for them. And you're constantly selling things when you're on the internet now, right? So anyway, welcome to Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. I am your host, Conan Neutron. I'm a rock and roll lifer who's toured and recorded for over 22 years, most known for the band Conan Neutron, The Secret Friends. Music is a huge part of my life. And I use the format of this very, very, very long-running podcast to talk about music with musicians whose work I enjoy and respect. Folks that may or may not be household names, but do something very special. This is episode 292. If this is your first time listening to the show, all the archives are at protonicreversal.com and are always free. No ads, no sponsors, no kidding. If you'd like to support the show and get episodes sooner, you can give $1 a month to patreon.com/protonicreversal. And if you like the show or even just a single episode, please feel free to share it along, like, subscribe, or post a review. All that helps people find the show, and it's just a darn nice thing to do. So that's right. Here we are, Protonic Reversal, episode 292. And of course, I'd like to welcome at this time, Michael Sohrab. Welcome to the show, dude.
What's up, man?
It's so good to have you. This is
nice to be here.
Joint appearance that probably should have happened a long time ago, frankly. So my bad for that. But
I mean, that's what we were thinking, but you know,
it really, anytime we're just like Conan's bad. Like it's kind of our default.
Take a lot of blame.
Something goes wrong, we're like, Conan.
I catch a lot of flack, and some of it is at least deserved. So one can hope it evens out in the wash eventually. You fellas have a new record, and that is no mean feat in general, but certainly not in these insane days of, I don't know if you guys are aware, but it's been kind of crazy past couple of years.
What?
We are actually in control of both the supply chain and the global pandemic. So for us, it was really not. There were no problems. Zero. It was.
We're fucking with y'all. Messing with y'all.
Or goof,
Sorry, I forgot this is live radio. Are we not? Are we not allowed to swear on this?
It's the internet. It's the internet. You can.
Oh, it's the internet. Okay, good. Because I can't stop. I can't control myself.
Can't stop.
That's right.
I think that. Okay, so what record is this for SAVAK? This is like 5? Yeah,
LP 5.
And I think all these records are quality records. You certainly don't show any signs of slowing down. Has the band there's been some different iterations of the band. There's been some there's been the challenges that come from continuing to be in a band when you have like real life obligations, things along those lines. From its inception to now, like does it feel like anything where there's been a path that's been planned out, or is it more just you're growing with the times and the times are growing with you?
The times are growing with us. You know, we're lost leaders in our field. We basically make ourselves available at a discount to draw people into rock music in general. You know, that's sort of our function. Now, I mean, I don't know, Jaws, what do you think? I feel like we just have continued to do what we do, and you know, as our friendship has gotten, you know, more, our lives become more intertwined. I think it affects our music in a positive way. But yeah, I mean, we just
I don't think there's ever been a grand plan or anything like that. It's Sohrab and I just kind of do whatever we can to keep it going. Basically, we enjoy each other's company. We like writing music together and recording and being on the road together. So
lots of yucks.
And the Yuck Fest, Laugh Olympics, and Conan, as you referred to, it's hard. You know, like you get older and people have more responsibilities and life stuff. So we've had a lot of, you know, like a veritable parade of bass players, as they say. We just got to do whatever we can.
It might sound mean spirited bring it up, but I think you've handled it with aplomb and vigor, and I applaud it.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. I mean, we enjoy it. I think that the minute we stop enjoying it, then it will cease. You know, because it's definitely, it's not making us rich so far. It's not doing that.
Wait till you get that controversial bump, though. That'll really.
That was never our goal, thankfully. So it did. But yeah,
I'm looking for that Protonic reversal bump for sure.
You hit the big time, fellas.
I hear a bag of money falls into your lap as soon as you're on this show.
Exactly. That's what I hear.
Oh, I'm not wearing pants just in case.
So hopefully it's paper money and not coins.
Yes.
Go ahead, sir. Yeah.
Oh no, I mean, I think that we've definitely learned a lot on the way in terms of just how to make this band work within our constraints. You know, I mean, Jaws has a young daughter. I've got a teenage son. We're both married. We, you know, both have a lot of, as you mentioned, like other responsibilities. And so I think that we've just kind of figured out how to make this band work for us in a way that's you know, a positive dynamic in our lives that is not a burden to the other people that we, you know, have responsibilities for.
As much as we know, anyways.
Yes.
It may be burdensome to others.
They commiserate in the side chat.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, it's interesting that from an outsider's perspective that you've managed to make your band a priority while also making the things that need to be a priority in your human lives a priority, like have a balance between the two. And I think that, as you might imagine, there are some musicians, one or two, that listen to this show, and you know, that can be a struggle for people, and that is something that there's no roadmap for that. And in fact, as we're only just down, see, this is inflammatory rhetoric. They're coming for me. I'm telling you.
Do you hear the siren? They're literally coming for you.
Is that you, Sohrab? Is that your siren?
It's my personal siren.
Yeah.
Your own personal siren. But like when, what I'm getting at is that you manage to keep the balancing act going, the spinning plate act, right, of real lives, but also have a real handle on what you guys do and do well, but then also push the boundaries of it. And like all of those things, like even one of those things would be fine for a life, but to do all of them at the same time, you know, it requires some finesse and thought. And you've always struck me as very thoughtful dudes in all that you've done. Well,
that's very kind. Thank you. I mean, I don't really think we're that different than so many other people that are doing it, but it, you know, it is hard. It's a time commitment. You have to, I mean, I think for people like Sohrab and I, and probably you as well, Conan, and a lot of other people who might be listening to the show, it's just kind of what we do. I mean, we're not we're not 21-year-olds trying to become rich, famous rock stars. We're older than that by a few years, and we're still doing. Yeah, we still do it because we love it, and it's our creative outlet. It's what we can do to hopefully like inject some positivity in the world. We're not going to we're not playing golf every week. We're going to our rehearsal studio. We're going to see shows, or we're going to whatever. This is what we do. So
yeah, I think that's the main thing. Is at a certain point, if you do this long enough, if you are in small bands long enough, you understand that there's no need to have outsized expectations, because they will only disappoint and I think sort of create a more likely scenario for you to want to stop doing it. So I think by keeping very low expectations, I don't even mean that in a conscious way, but just sort of, I grew up in the DC punk rock world, and so there was no making it. There was no like all these sort of like these rock and roll conceits were not part of the dialogue of being a band in DC in the 80s and 90s. And so, I sort of feel like, Jaws grew up in Omaha, but there's similar DNA in terms of, you're in a band because that's, Joe said, this is what you do. This is how you express yourself. This is how you kind of walk through the world. And so there's no reason to not do it unless you physically can't. As soon as you can't hold a guitar and you want to be able to switch to like a ukulele or something, I don't know what, like a thumb piano. I look for those are the golden years, truly. My thumb piano years. I think that's what we're really.
Ooh, yeah, those are good years for you. Yeah.
Amongst the pantheon of the discography, the thumb piano period is.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but
Yeah, it's hard to find. If you can find some stuff on Discogs, I think, right?
Yeah, you got to find a guy. You got to find a guy that. Yeah. But if you do, you're a treat. I know, but I mean, in all seriousness, setting expectations where, and we've talked about this. I don't remember if it was on air or not, but about the journey kind of being the destination, right? Like that you just enjoy the act of doing it, the act of writing music, making records, going on tours, so on and so on, and doing so in a sustainable way. That if you enjoy that process of it, then it's not that the audience doesn't matter. Of course, the audience matters, but you can find value in it that maybe society doesn't lead you to expect.
Yeah, I mean, I think really early on you have to sort of, particularly actually early on when you have a kid, you have to learn to speak about the fact that you're in a band that nobody's ever heard of to other parents. And that's a very humbling and wonderful thing.
Right.
Because
never heard of you.
Sort of, okay. Well, okay. No, I mean, it's sort of, you have to learn to accept the fact that like this thing that we do is infinitesimally small. Yeah. And so, it is just what it is. It's nothing more. It's nothing less. And we like it, so that's why we do it.
Yeah. Some people paint pictures. Some people,
mold
golf or mold, remove mold.
I mean, look, it's basically removing mold. That's what we're doing. We're
somewhere between golf and removing mold. Yes,
it's somewhere between the two. SAVAK.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the night, I suppose. I mean,
right. As Jaws and I were figuring out earlier, it's sort of the difference between like a Tuesday night and a Friday night. Is it Taco Tuesday? Is it Freebase Friday? Which one is it? So, for us, it's
Freebase Friday. Yeah. I remember those. Yeah, well, I think that it's notable.
Free jazz.
Yeah.
Free jazz Friday. Come on, man. Get it straight.
Friday. Freebase Friday. Jesus, this is some show thing. But look, I mean, you
look.
The context for this is that you're managing to follow your own creative direction. I mean, there's been a, even since the first record, I like the first record quite a bit. There's been a lot of kind of leaning into and finding out what you guys do well, but then also kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit. Like, it's not lost on me. Like, it's very much, it seems like people take it as an insult when you say it, but I think you guys are like a musician's band to a certain degree. In the fact that a lot of people that probably buy the records are also, in fact, musicians. And there's nothing wrong with it. Silkworm was the same way, right? You know, and that's like one of my favorite bands. And how do you keep yourself creatively viable and moving forward and doing stuff that's exciting to you when there are different challenges when you're an adult human being versus when you're just like, in your early 20s or whatever. I mean, you have to kind of want it a little more and be willing to make it work. You have to find the yes, right?
I don't know. I don't want to speak for Jaws. I honestly don't think about it that much. I don't put that much. I don't sort of dissect it that much. Both Jaws and I like a lot of different kinds of music, and so I think part of being in a band is figuring out how to incorporate different ideas. It's vocabulary, right? It's like how you construct sentences, how you make paragraphs, and then longer stories. You have to figure out a way to keep it interesting for yourself, or at least that's for me. That's my goal. Like I don't see the point in doing the same thing over and over and over again. Definitely with the same results. That would be crazy. But literally, so Jaws and I listen to a lot of music, and we talk about stuff, and we share, different music we're listening to, and then we can refer to something like, hey, what if we tried something like that in this part of the song? And Jaws played this guitar part on one of the songs in the record, and I was like, oh man, it sounds like a cool 60s Nigerian hotel band, and it was like to drop like a guitar line that could be from like a cool 60s analog Africa comp, into the middle of like a Wire song, is for us that keeps it fun and interesting, and and I just try to remain curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are definitely so many bands who kind of have from their beginning, or they have a sound they try to go for, whether it's like a production aesthetic in the studio, or just like a very specific sort of genre type or subgenre type even. I mean, I kind of think one of the cool things about SAVAK is that it really is like this amalgamation of a lot of different things. I mean, under sort of guitar based, sort of post-punk, punk rock type umbrella, but there's a lot of different stuff happening there. And I don't know, we just kind of do what we like to do. I mean, we do, I think, try to keep it interesting because, I don't know, at this point, we're not, there's no great agenda other than just to, try to enjoy it and keep it interesting. And, I mean, I like writing songs. I like that, like putting together those puzzles. I like it, collaborating with people and getting other ideas and sort of opening up your mind and your thought process to how different things can work. And I think that's, that's kind of a part of the process for us. But
and I definitely think that that's one thing that this band has, in a way, sort of a more evolved version of that in this band than I've had in previous bands, where I think that kind of willingness to just say like, all right, let's, you have this idea, let's do that, and kind of see where it takes you, as opposed to, when I was in Edsel in the 90s, having very, specific ideas about how things more shouldn't be than should be. But, there were a lot of boundaries to we're not doing this. And I think Jaws and I were less interested in those kinds of things, more interested in what if we added keyboards to this? What if we got, Greg to play saxophone? What if we, just trying to see where things can go, as opposed to deciding where they shouldn't go, because it's music. You don't have to make the rules are arbitrary,
Definitely.
Yeah, and that allows you, again, to the aforementioned pushing forward the sound and writing different kinds of songs versus we all love the Ramones, right? But Johnny Ramone's whole thing is he did not want to advance. Which is hilarious and very Johnny Ramone. And I think that there's a through line through all of it that you've created quite a body of work so far, even. And
thank you.
Which is also, when you're a band that, it's not like there's the big radio hit that I'm aware of. So how do you pick the set?
There should be, though, by the way. There should be a few
huge jams in Lithuania, Netherlands. Just wait, man. Just wait.
I mean, I thought out of the gate, Alive in Shadows is oh, that's the best single I've heard in a long time. right? And then I was the only person apparently that thought that.
No, you weren't the only one, Cohen.
Yeah, Jaws definitely thought it.
I thought so too. I agreed with you.
No, I mean, I think that the thing about our band too is that we're not on a big label. We're not part of something that has sort of a machine that does that kind of legwork for us. You know, I mean, when Obits was on Sub Pop is they're a really well-run label. So any band on that label has a built-in publicity team, has a built-in radio team, has all these things which kind of get you out there into the world in a way that if you're just another bunch of folks in a band, you don't necessarily have that access unless you have money and you want to spend it to hire a radio team and a publicity team and so forth. And we've experimented with those things, saving a little money here and there and hiring somebody to do stuff that we ourselves think that maybe it's not our strength. So
it's not, yeah. But then it almost seems to me, I don't want to put words in your mouth, it almost seems to me that people are more, that's like less effective than ever unless it's something that people already know that they like or that they already have like some recommendation for. So it will get you in the door to a certain degree, but I feel like the entire world of PR seems to be in a very bizarre state of
I mean, it's there are so many great people who do good work for bands and PR people, but there are also so many bands who just don't, like, they spend money kind of, I don't know. It's sort of like, do you remember that company Sonic Bids who would take take all this money from bands that
that was a Victory and Associates running gag was, this is more of a Sonic Bid style video.
But there's some sort of parallel, and there's a lot of bands that I think just maybe aren't that smart, or they don't know what they want, or their goals are misguided or whatever, and they feel like if you pay this person X amount of money, or like these companies who where did they come from? We got emails today on our band email account. We're like from, I don't know we don't even know what they're offering. They wanted us to give them money.
They want to know if you want to be involved in whatever their pyramid scheme is.
Yeah. So we want you to be an influencer for us. What's your product? We don't know yet. We want you to be an influencer for us.
I mean,
sadly,
I don't think they've seen us in their clothes yet, but
yeah. I mean, you kind of feel bad because there's so many bands who've probably put money out and, like whatever, they've made they've given publicists money to eat and pay their rent, but the band's crappy and they're never going to go anywhere. I don't know. I don't want to sound crass, but
the thing about the machinery part of like the music biz is that it's all just a gamble. There's no guarantee for any of it. I mean, there was obviously a time where like any new Discord record, a new Touch and Go record, or SST record, or whatever, you sort of knew if that was what you were into, that if there was a new record on that label, you might be interested. Good chances are you'd be interested in it. And I don't think that exists as much now. There are some like Trouble in Mind records, or I think there are some smaller labels that do sort of have taste, very specific taste. And it might not all be the same kind of thing, but you sort of feel an affinity for the people who are running those labels, and you're like, oh, okay, there's new Trouble in Mind records, like I want to check it out, or International Anthem, or there are these, or like Honest John's. I mean, there's all these labels that do really great stuff, and so for me to buy a record that comes out on Honest John's, it requires no publicity. I just need to be on their
you know it exists. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And or there's this great label in Toronto called We Are Busybodies, and they do a great combination of like reissues and new bands, and now I get their emails, so now I can go through and see what I might be interested in. And it didn't require a radio team or a PR team, but not everything is like that. There's other stuff that I think there's the biz part of it where people want to sell the object, so it's potato chips and cookies and shoes and music, so it's like it's lifestyle oriented stuff, and that's just not, we're just not about that. So
SAVAK is a lifestyle brand, is what you're trying to tell me.
We are not yet a lifestyle brand, but I think part of it is we've found we have the best luck when we reach out to people ourselves, because they're more sympathetic, and probably if we find people who we have shared common history with, or current crossover, we're going to have much better luck at making an impact than just a random blind email or, it's like,
Sure.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I was
do whatever works for you.
There
are no rules. People always try to make it seem like you're supposed to do things a certain way. You release records on this day. And none of that stuff matters. I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it's not the fact that people adhere to these things. It's not potato chips. It's not like, you don't get the end cap placement and then sell more, bags of chips or whatever.
End cap. Oh, as a former record store employee, you just gave me a flashback by saying that. Yeah. The end cap placement. Well, and look, I mean, perfect example, right? I was one of a very few amount of people that knew both of you guys when you started playing together. From like, well, not this, so different regions, same circles, but like I was like, oh, wow, that's two great tastes that taste great together. Fantastic. But is to be on the bleeding edge of what you guys were doing, do you have to be Conan Neutron? Well, hopefully not. I wouldn't wish that on an enemy. I mean, but the personal connection always is going to matter. Like, and it's also why I'm surprised by bands that are good, but also dicks too. No names mentioned, where it's like, do you think that you can do that now? Like, this isn't like 1973. Like, reputation matters. But anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think the way you carry yourself, it just reflects the kind of people that you are. That doesn't necessarily make you a better or worse band. I mean, if I had to meet every person in every band that I liked, I may find that I quickly don't want to listen to their music. So I don't like, one doesn't necessarily guarantee the other. Or, I mean, we all know, and probably ourselves are guilty of being, the guys who are super nice in a band that nobody cares about. So I think that
the devil, you say.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, ultimately, even though we're playing loud electric guitars in front of a drummer, it's folk music, and so at some root level, it's made by people for people, and so that's the one thing I feel like I've learned from the world of punk rock and from growing up in DC and just being in a band for however many decades it's been. It's just, you have to figure out how to just meet people and sort of have a conversation. And sometimes that conversation is putting your music out there. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just literally having a conversation, Yeah.
Mikey, what are your thoughts?
Well,
on any of that?
You're like, actually, that was a monologue, not a conversation.
Yeah, I don't know. I think for a band like SAVAK, and I can only really speak to our experience. I think the rewarding parts that we feel, it's when we make, we have human interactions. We play the shows, we meet people, we have conversations, we get to know people, they become sympathetic to what we're doing. And I mean, like, our music's good. We write good music. We've been doing this for a long time. Our songs are good. Our records are good. I don't think, it's not going to be for everybody, but it's certainly, it could find a broader audience if we were, I don't know, pushed in the right way or marketed in the right way or something, or maybe on a bigger label, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, I don't think that's what we're just, we enjoy what we're doing. We like to travel because we get to see our friends that we might not otherwise get to see on a regular basis. And I think it's not just about that. I mean, we want more people to listen to the band. We want to make more connections, but it's just about keeping it real, essentially. And, I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but it
does. No, it totally does. And I there's something to be said for taking, like, the folk music approach. Sure. I mean, that makes sense, right? Because it's all about connection. It's about connection and community and shared experience. I mean, the best shows usually are. Right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that, somehow through media, we've been brainwashed into thinking that only can be enjoyed in a certain fashion, a certain capacity, at a certain level. And, tropes that for me, what I always would put the corollary to is I would just never let anybody at my day job know I played in a band ever for any reason, because I just didn't want to have that conversation. They're like, oh, what kind of places do you play? What kind of, oh my God, you don't care, and I don't care to tell you. But then again, I'm talking about
really? Is that really how you felt?
Oh, absolutely. Although did have experience once of being like, and this is one of the cool guys that works, Hawaiian shirt guy, brews beer in his spare time, right? He comes up and is like, did you play support for the Thermals? And I'm like, yes. I was like, oh, cool. Are you going to see Man or Asherman next week? I'm like, yes, I am. So that's how you know you found your people, right? But I mean, I don't know. For me, some people think that that's a really bizarre way of operating, but I just have like the two lives, and those lives don't intersect for me. But then
interesting.
I'm a bit of a raccoon that way. So
we've been to your place. It's definitely
yeah.
No.
No,
it was more like a beaver's dam, though. There's a lot of tunnels underwater. And,
I think I still remember Matt's sleep number, actually. Although we don't have
the log flume in your place is really spectacular.
Sleep number log flume, yeah.
No, I it's funny. I used to feel, I think, similar to what you're saying in terms of not kind of wanting to burden other people with having to feel like they have to be really positive about this thing that they're completely unfamiliar with. But I really think for me it was having a kid and just having to be around and communicate with all these people that regularly that I wouldn't necessarily choose to, have our lives intersect, but because of your kid, your lives do intersect on a daily basis. And you want to have something more than just like, lovely weather out there today, Steve.
Right.
And so
inevitably everybody asks, like, what do you do? And obviously playing music is a big part of what we do,
Yeah.
So it comes up. And I was just thinking about this past weekend. There was like some event at a playground nearby, and my kids were there, and some of the other parents know that I play music, and that these are people who are like, New York City finance people, doctors, and they're not, and to generalize, they're not our people in the sense that they're not like punk rock people. They're not people who probably go to see a lot of live music, but they know I play music, and they're always like, that's so cool, and I'll like, what, can I listen to your music somewhere? And I'm like, sure, I'll send them the Spotify link or whatever. And but one of the dads is a great guy. He was like, are you guys playing around anytime soon? I was like, yeah, we're playing next month. He's like, is it on a weekend? I'm like, it's actually on a Thursday. He's like, weekends are good for me. Thursday's not so good. I'm like, I get it, man. I get it,
I mean, it's fair, right? If you got to wake up Friday morning and be fresh for your job.
Yeah, you'd be like, it's not good for me either, but I still do it.
We've carved out our lives, so we don't have to be fresh for anything,
I know.
We're constantly expired.
Build your life in such a way that you don't have to be fresh and early the next morning.
Yeah.
My old roommate, when I lived in Chicago for a year, at Easter, she would buy Peeps and open the package and leave it on top of the fridge for a couple of days so that they would sort of form a slight crust on them. And I sort of feel like
it would age like fine wine, yes.
Well, and I wouldn't say fine wine, but I sort of feel like that's kind of what we've done to ourselves as people by playing music for so long. It's like we open the package and we just sort of let the air and dust and just kind of gather upon us, and then it gives character. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up.
Yeah, it's true.
But I will say, to quickly go back to the thing about talking to other people about what you do when they're not people who necessarily have a familiarity. One is, on a personal level, it forces me to try to talk about the same thing in different ways, which I like. It's a good challenge, because I don't want to repeat myself all the time and be like, well, it's say the same trite 4 words over and over.
You don't have an elevator pitch for SAVAK?
No, that's the thing, I only ride escalators.
Here's the deal.
No, and the other thing too is I find that I can be really surprised by people who, weren't giving off clues that they had something in common, and then like this guy that my wife used to work with, he was like, "Oh, your husband's in a band," blah, blah, blah. And she sent him a link, and the first thing he wrote back is like, "Oh, they must really like Wire." And I was like, "Wait a second." I was like, "You work with a guy who knows who Wire is?" You know, I was like, "That guy just got bonus points in my book." You know?
That's how my best friend. Yeah, totally.
But you know, and so it's A, it's nice to be surprised by people, and B, it's good to surprise myself or force myself to try to think about and speak about things in new ways.
It's a good challenge just in general. Yeah.
Definitely.
So
I'm going to plug in my computer really quick so it doesn't die.
I appreciate the transparency. Thank you.
That's Jaws living on the edge right there. Like he was.
That's right, man.
Like, how low is the battery? Like, just wait. Don't plug it in yet.
I just saw that little red pop up. I'm like, what?
He's like, it's Conan, right? I guess we'll see how the conversation goes.
Ooh,
always be. I mean, I'm plugging it in, Conan. So this is looking good for us right now.
That's good. That's a good sign. That's that's everything right there.
By the way, thanks so much about like this board meeting. I'm really glad that we're able to all take together. I've got a couple of agenda items. I don't know if.
I think we, we'll just hold all the infrastructure items until later in the document.
Jaws wanted to talk about the boiler, if we could. There's some.
That's fair.
Did you guys hear my boiler clanging just a few minutes ago? By the way,
I thought that was a new Wire record.
I know that was my boiler be clanging right now.
Boilers be clanging.
Boilers be clanging. Because it's what, the end of April, and it's like 30 degrees in New York City.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Spring hasn't really come yet this year.
We had false spring last weekend, and like everybody lost their minds. It was like, running around half naked, and then suddenly it's like, okay, and then back to cold and overcast. There you go.
Yeah, we've had like 3 or 4 days too. So
there was like one day.
I'm wearing my winter scarf still.
There you go. So first of all, we should potentially talk about the new record.
Sure. I mean, we could just keep talking about how great we are.
Yeah.
I think we know. Let's circle that one a little bit.
Yeah. Let's circle back around to that. So pretty recent. Like, at the time of this recording, it's the end of April. It's been a few weeks. Of course, the record is human error / human delight. So. Is that was the idea to put as much punctuation as possible so you could get like a slash in there? Was that important, or is that is there a story behind the name?
There is. Jaws. I think this is a Jaws concept.
Oh, right. I have to answer this question now. I don't know, man. It's just some stuff I was thinking about.
That's the best. I love those kinds of answers, where especially when it's like some big band that everyone is like, and then they're like, it's just whatever, blah, blah, like trails off.
Yeah, I think like many of us who write songs or whatever, do like dumb stuff like this. I have on my phone, I have like a notes list about, I don't know, of a million different like song titles, record titles, band names, and things like that, and I think that human error, human delight was basically like combining two different concepts. But I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, this kind of makes sense in a lot of ways. So it was just something that sort of like kind of revealed itself to me in this, in the fact that we are all imperfect people, and we all there's a common struggle, if you will, and we're all dealing with a lot of the same challenges right now, especially during the pandemic. It's brought us together, I think, in a lot of ways, in spite of all the division that we've seen. But, and it's human, like making mistakes, and, it's just part of who we are. But there's obviously the other side of it, where we can really, there's a lot of wonderful things that we can find in our relationships. And, I don't know.
Well, I was going to
say something
like
that. Yeah.
Well, when we originally talked about it, the idea was to release 2 separate EPs.
Oh, right,
and
yeah.
Put them together in like a gatefold sleeve, and one would be sort of conceptually, the umbrella was human error, and the other would be human delight. And we realized that I mean, we talked to a couple friends who put out records, and they're like, okay, well, that's going to double your pressing costs, and
Yes.
it means you have a much heavier package that'll be more expensive to ship. Like all these things, and we're like, okay, so plan B. But then we still liked the idea of it, and we had these songs that we felt sort of fit conceptually with either Human Error or Human Delight. And also, I just think sort of our MO, for lack of a better way of saying it, as a band is to sort of celebrate the mistakes or celebrate the imperfections, and to not be afraid to stick your neck out there. So to find the delight in the error. And so I think that was part of it too, was like just because I think what makes music interesting, what makes art interesting is the humanness of it, which is flawed, you know, because there is no perfect art out there. You know, it's always sort of in the shadow of whatever your vision of perfection is. And so I think that was part of it too, was just to sort of say, you know, we embrace the delight in the error.
Yeah, what he said.
Yeah. Well, it would be cool if it was a double 12-inch gatefold, though.
Yeah, I kind of forgot about that. That was our initial plan. I mean, it would have been so cool, but yeah.
Well, as someone who has put out a 2x LP, one Secret Friends, one Cool Comp, this is a compilation for all the 7 inches. It's great, but it's not great to ship, and it was not great to put together. But it's great for the people that's for. That said, it's you may as well be making a 10-inch record as far as it being a niche thing to a certain degree. So
yeah,
you didn't consult me, but that's what I would have said.
Yeah. Well, consider yourself consulted.
But there's
in retrospect,
we brought Neutron in at a critical moment, 2 weeks after it came out.
Some people's moon is in retrograde. We have your opinion is sort of, you know, we're taking it sort of we're living the shadow of your input.
Right, ipso facto. Yeah. But it's interesting you mentioned that, because there is the mood is like slightly different throughout it, right? Like the mood of the 2 EPs or the record, if you will. Like there is some kind of noticeable difference, but there's a through line through all of it. And I like that. I mean, gosh, how many bass players do you have on here? Like 4, 5, 6. Like you've got, like, because you have Doug on there, right? On
yep, he bookends the record. So
yeah, I think there's at least five bass players on the record, if I'm not mistaken.
There's Doug, there's Matt Hunter, there's Nick Sewell, there's Anthony Roman, Jeff Sanoff, Mikey Jaws.
Yeah.
So that's 6.
It's a lot of bass players.
It is. No slapping, no popping.
So did you? What was it? Was that like the conceit of it, or did that end up being how it turned out to have all the different musicians?
No. I mean, yes, how it turned out.
Yeah, it's how it turned out. Well, yeah, obviously we made this during the pandemic. We were on lockdown, and so, some of the stuff, like some of the songs, a lot of the songs that come like are of my origin, I actually write from bass, sort of. So, I write a lot from bass, so I'll just play bass. But we also really, I think, missed the collaborative process of it, and we were trying to figure out ways we can get other people involved, even though we could, like, our practice space had been shut for like 6 or 8 months or something like that. We couldn't go in and rehearse. Like, there was no other way to do it. So we just kind of like started sending stuff up the flagpole and like, hey, are you guys, bass player friend, are you interested in perhaps contributing? Because I think, we enjoy that part of the process. I think that's one of the nice things about being in a band is like that mutual collaboration. But yeah, so that's kind of how it came together, I think.
It also just allows for, as we're writing, to sort of ask ourselves, like, oh, who might be a good person for this tune? Who could bring something that we wouldn't necessarily bring ourselves? And so, like in the case of the first song on the record, No Blues, No Jazz, I was listening to 11th Dream Day, and I was like, man, Doug is such a great, I think he gets associated with what he does in Tortoise for obvious reasons, and they're a great band. But I was listening to 11th Dream Day, and I was like, man, his bass playing in a rock and roll band is so good. Yeah. And so I emailed him. I was like, hey, man, would you be up for it? And he was like, yeah. He's like, absolutely. So, and then what he did on the last song, which is, that song is definitely a bit of a departure from our standard kind of thing. And again, he wrote this great bass line that has these hooks in it, and it was terrific. And it made both of those songs better than what they would have been otherwise.
Definitely.
And, Anthony Roman plays a certain way. Our friend Nick in Toronto, he's actually in this really amazing band called Biblical. That's a sort of like heavy, kind of like a psych doom. It's probably not even fair. They're more interesting than that. They're almost like write like soundtracks to like Giallo films, but as like a rock band. They're great. And that was like, it'd be cool to have him on that song Set Apart, where it's literally just one bass line for 6 minutes.
Yeah. Like, so do you kind of auteur it that way, where you sort of like pick who would
or ask if they'd be interested, like, hey, I was thinking about that, and we're actually working right now on getting some remixes done and similarly we're like, oh, who could we ask, who might be an interesting person to work on a particular song? And that's in a similar spirit. I think that's just kind of, as Jaws was saying, like, it allows that collaborative thing to happen at a time and a place where it's harder to do that the way we're more familiar with doing it.
More typical, being in a room together, playing with and to each other collaboratively.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the results speak for themselves. I think it's a great record, and I think that it brings out a lot of cool elements of what you guys have done previously, but it also pushes new ground forward, as I've mentioned at least 4 times so far. So this actually might be a good time, something that during the pandemic I actually started doing especially when someone has a new record, is to just kind of go through each song on the record, like song by song. You can say anything about like the title, like lyrics, the origination, recording, funny story, whatever, just some kind of memories of some kind between each of the songs to kind of go through. You guys into doing that?
Sure.
Yeah.
How awkward would it be if you said no? If you said no, how awkward would that be?
Yeah.
I feel like it'd be very
no.
Yeah, sorry, Conan.
Can we talk about somebody else's record?
Yeah. To this day, no one has said no to that, but that would be a very awkward. I better be ready with a very good retort if somebody says no. I'm not sure what I would say.
Yeah.
That's entertainment. I don't know. So cool. Let's go through every song here on Human Error / Human Delight. Start off with, of course, first song, No Blues, No Jazz. So why don't we go? I want to go Mikey first. You guys can.
This is a Sohrab song, so he should probably go first.
That's why I wanted you to go first.
Oh. Sohrab's like, hey man, I wrote this song. Can you put some guitar down on it? I'm like, yeah, dude, I could do that.
Killing me.
I'll preempt this, and so
we're letting you go first again. Go ahead.
You learned the lesson.
No. So when this started, it was actually no blues, no jazz, no rock and roll, and it was basically the idea that from 2 things. One, working in a record store, there's always that thing of recommend it if you like, or file under, which is nice when you're completely unfamiliar with something. And we actually put a sticker on our new record for the store copies that has that recommend it if you like. But sort of riffing on that, I thought, there's all these like very specific sort of striations of what, if you like X, you like X.1, and so I thought, what if instead of having something where it's based strictly on what you like, what if you reverse that and sort of carve out a negative space based on things that you're not into? And then I had a whole thing written based on that, and it turned out it was terrible. It was so dumb. And so then I just started thinking about it more in terms of boundaries and borders, and how we have a need to classify stuff to understand stuff, and it makes sense. But I think there are times when it comes to how we communicate or how we make art or how we talk about art where it's so narrow. We sort of demand these very the bandwidth can only be so wide. And so then I started kind of worked with that idea and broke it more into how we divide ourselves as people, you know, sort of no cities, no states, no arbitrary borders. So this idea of like removing these boundaries and sort of being more open. So the no blues, no jazz is not really about no blues music, no jazz music. It's about no strict definitions of what things have to be. It's all about freedom, mate.
Isn't it?
Isn't it? That's right.
So that's my 2 cents on that one.
Mikey, anything to add other than the non-addition you did earlier?
There's a ripping guitar solo on it.
It is.
That's Jaws.
It's a good rock and roll tune. I like it.
What an epiphany.
Yeah.
Second song up, Empathy.
Yeah, that is a song that originated. I think I came up with like the main progression and sort of like the guitar riff at an old apartment that I used to live in, and my family and I moved during the pandemic. So there's a few songs. As far as my contributions to this record, the timing of it was weird because I ended up writing a few songs in like our old apartment. I stayed at a few different houses throughout the early stages of the pandemic. So this was like for my old apartment, and the song title Empathy basically just kind of was coming out of the current state of affairs and some own like personal things that I was going through, but how important it is that people try to, you know, walk a mile in each other's shoes, especially when there's so much suffering in the world. And I mean, lyrically, I don't think it's not super expansive or anything like that, but it kind of was going for a little bit of like a New Zealand Flying Nun jangle.
Yeah, I can hear that
on it. And I've had a lot of friends say, "Oh, it reminds me of like early REM or something like that." Very cool compliment, but yeah, that's kind of the origin story behind that one.
A little bit, maybe gliding nun, if not flying.
That's you'd be gliding nun.
Yeah,
I do think in a nice way it does harken back to sort of like Murmur or Reckoning or, you know, those records, and I do think that Jaws there's sort of a part of your voice that is reminiscent of the early Michael Stipe way of singing, which I think is great. I really like it a lot.
Yeah, when REM was like more of a like traditional rock band, I suppose, rather than like the balladeering.
College rock.
Yeah,
college rock.
But there's also like in the refrain of the song too. There is just the sort of dichotomy of like, if you have to, you know, I'm waiting for your empathy. If you're waiting for someone's empathy, it's never coming. You know what I mean? It's just like if someone is not, if someone is not an empathetic person, you know, you're kind of SOL, you know, in that regard. So you have to move on. You have to figure out how to deal with it and accept it for what it is. And you know, I don't know.
I mean, I feel like there was a lot of waiting around for empathy in the pandemic, right? And guess what? Guffman didn't show. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Someone chucking you a roll of paper towels while you're drowning, you know?
Yeah.
Exactly. I don't know why I'm laughing, other than the fact that's all I can do is keep from crying.
But that's the world we live in, right? You know, like people are working on their brand when there's people suffering, and it's just so shitty. It's really, not to be a Debbie Downer about it, but I do have hope.
Exactly. The idea of hope, if not hope itself, the idea of hope, the loose idea.
It's more like a Debbie Downer party. You know, he starts to eat everyone around him.
Exactly. Stuff gets really weird when winter comes. Yeah. Yo. My book on siblings is what's up next.
So that is definitely, I would say, a very like Devo vibe on that one. And that was something that, so our drummer Matt is from Ohio. So I was like, hey man, this one is straight to your roots.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I could kind of hear that. And I must be an authority because I had Eric Casali on the show last week. So.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
Well, so musically, it's definitely I would say inspired by Devo, and the lyrically, I just had the idea of, the first line is "Let's talk about discipline," and so I just sort of kind of came up with this idea of like, if you were in your with your therapist, the various things that might come up, like let's talk about our former spouses, let's talk about our birth names, let's talk about our perversions, all these things. But then I also like the idea that the therapist was a narcissist. And so essentially like is providing all these the subject matter for you to discuss. And then at the end, it's like, hey, have you read my book on siblings? Right. So in the end, your therapist is trying to sell you the book that the therapist has written, and not just helping you out. Because, without being too much of a Debbie Downer party, I do think the idea is that, we have all these things that we sort of go into thinking that if you can only explore these things, you can find out more about yourself and resolve all these problems. And meanwhile, there's always somebody there with like a sandwich board trying to sell you something, so no matter what you're going through, there's always like somebody with their yapping their gums about where you should be spending your money. Something like that.
Yeah. My only comment is like the nerve of an only child to write a book or write a song called "My Book on Siblings."
Exactly.
So, only child.
Called out.
It is true. But Jaws, have you read my book on siblings? Because it put it on the list of things I don't know.
It's on my wish list. Yeah.
Opinions about things I don't know anything about.
Yeah, exactly. It used to be a bit on my old show where we'd have Mouse talk about movies he hadn't seen and what he thought they would be like. It was very entertaining.
That's great.
Man has a vivid imagination, so it's deeply hilarious.
Tell Mouse I say hello. It's been
I will.
years, but
it has been years. Yeah,
it's been. He's a good dude for sure.
He is. Cold Ocean.
Yeah. So that song.
It's about motorcycles.
It's a two-stroke.
Two-stroke joke. I happened to have the good fortune in the early part of the pandemic to get out of New York City in the month of May in 2020, and I spent about a month or so in Long Island, kind of up in the upper area of Long Island. I don't know what it's called, but near the ocean. So I had a lot of time, a lot of solitude, just walking around the ocean. There wasn't like we were living in this really weird time. It definitely influenced it. It was just, kind of a self-reflective song. Musically, I think if I remember correctly, I was really, really listening to a lot of Sleaford mods at the time, and I wanted like a really bare, stripped down, kind of just like one bass line throughout the whole song, sort of thing. And if I could have done like a Jason Williams style rap on it or whatever, but it's impossible because only he can do that,
Yeah,
so that was, yeah.
You don't want to hear someone fail at doing that. Like that's going to be
no. I could never do that. But it also didn't end up being that kind of song either. It sort of has that, but it also, has kind of like a really like big rock chorus and other parts to it. Yeah, I think that's kind of where my head was when that was coming together.
And we made a fun video for that one. I think of the videos we've done, that's one of my favorite ones.
That's cool.
We shot it all in Brooklyn, so a bit of a love letter to the borough, but also, it was just neat to start out near where I live, by where the museum is, and then work our way on the train down to Coney Island and Brighton Beach, which is more Ukrainian and Russian, and just sort of explore the city, the borough, and sort of capture that in the song.
Make our way to the ocean on a very cold day too. Indeed, we did.
It was really cold.
Yeah, it was suffering for our art.
Truth in advertising.
Yeah.
Truth in advertising. Set Apart is the next one.
Well, so that one, it is literally just one riff that gets repeated for 5 minutes or something like that. And so it was longer when we first started, but I ended up cutting it down. But the idea was really just to kind of find a groove and get a dynamic going so that different elements could come in and out and you know, and there's not even very many lyrics. I mean, I think there's like 5 lines or something like that. And so just to really kind of hone in on I have to leave in 15 minutes, but to hone in on a groove and just kind of work that as best as possible, and to use, so our friend Josh played saxophone on it. There's some sort of like found sound percussion stuff we put in there. And it's actually been fun to play live because it is different every time. And we have a couple of reference points for when things are going to happen, but like when it switches to the verses, I kind of look over at my shoulder at the drummer and we switch. And it's
got to have some kind of cue shellac style, or it's just not going to work.
Yeah, we just try to keep it really simple, and if we miss it, we miss it. Whatever, it's okay. It's pretty free, and I like that about it.
Yeah, that's I really enjoyed how that song has turned out live, which is basically it is different every single time. Yeah, it's cool. It has a bit of like there's a krautrock element to it, but there's also just sort of an experimental, like,
I was thinking third album Wire a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
There you go.
Neighbor, it's 155.
Yeah.
We're across the street.
Across the street.
We're like checking out, like, oh, I think Graham wants to take out the trash.
Yeah.
The shrubs aren't trimmed quite as nicely across the street.
Yeah. Like, oh, he's working on that mullet. Those jodhpurs look great on him.
Oddsmaker.
Yeah, that was a song, I think, sort of lyrically, I was reflecting a lot on just being an older man with parents, and just started like that, my relationship with my parents, my mom in particular, and just thinking about that, and trying to sort of paint a picture about where I am in my life, my questions, my insecurities, and sort of just the reality of it. I am not my mother's only son, which is a line that I use in the song. She hasn't. I have a brother, but in my mind, I'm my mom's only son. I'm just kidding. Yeah. So, and I was going for just sort of a more sparser, like kind of early, like not early Cure, but like just with the space a little bit darker. A little more atmospheric type stuff, and yeah,
I really like the way the bass and the drums sound on this song. As far as just recorded sounds go, they're some of my favorite that we've gotten. Is the way the bass sounds and the way the drums sound on this song.
This is the song, I will say, that in my mind, I feel like of the songs that I wrote, I feel like, well, this has got to be the hit, right? But nobody really sees it as the hit other than me. But that's not true. I had a couple other friends tell me, "Oh, that's the hit on the record," but it's not widely thought of that way. But it should be
widely. Are any of our music widely thought about it?
I mean, of the 5 people I've pulled,
right. Yeah, it's a sample size.
My wife and child feel very strongly about this.
That's a good one.
Well, the next song is another Jaws, "Trash and the Ghost."
Yes, yes, it is.
That song turned out really cool. I think maybe it's turned out to be one of my favorite songs on the record, just because it's just a little bit different. I think it ended up taking on sort of like an earlier SST kind of like Screaming Trees kind of vibe. Sort of meets like Echo and the Bunnymen, which is I'm a huge fan of. I could never, of course, sing like Ian McCullough, but yeah, I was like, wow, kind of like I felt like that's cool that this is SAVAK is actually kind of like, going in that direction for this tune.
Yeah,
because it doesn't.
That like 1985 SST vibe, like Husker Du, Screaming Trees, like I think comes through in a really cool way. And it's another one that's been really fun to play live. So, because of the pandemic, both the last record and this new record, we're finally having a chance to play these songs. And so it's been interesting to see which ones work quickly in terms of feeling like pretty natural, and which ones sort of take a little bit to reveal themselves. But this one straight out of the gate was easy and fun to play.
Yeah, that is very real too. Like especially when you're a band that's fairly prolific, right? Like, and we all know what the last couple of years were like. So you just haven't didn't even know, does this work in front of people? I don't know. Guess we'll find out, right?
Yeah, or just does it work? Does it feel right when we're playing it?
Yeah,
I mean, there's definitely songs that, after playing them like, I don't know, 5-10 times, they start to feel more comfortable. Whereas, you have to get over the thinking about every part and trying to remember the words, and
yes,
so it just becomes more second nature.
Yes, I hear that's and then and there's always songs that like, maybe this is better recorded. Let's do other things too. And
and I think that's fine.
Definitely.
I don't think that I definitely don't feel that we owe the songs anything. Like they don't have to be played.
The Human Error, Human Delight album played front to back.
Probably not going to happen.
Never know. You never know. Weirder things have happened.
It's true.
Recanted. Parentheses.
So this one is sort of in the spirit of like Wire or even the Kinks, where they basically take one riff and make a verse and a chorus out of it. And the thing that distinguishes it is just how the vocals go or how some other element interacts with the riff. And while not as good as any Wire or Kinks song, it was that was sort of the inspiration for it. And lyrically, it's definitely the most sort of pandemic lyric that I wrote on for any of the stuff, just because it was at a time when Cuomo was giving his daily COVID updates.
Right.
And, he had props and he had all. I mean, it felt like such a charade, because I live around the corner from the hospital and there's a refrigerated truck filling with bodies, and he's getting on TV with like a weird, volcano behind him, that like a student-made volcano that he's paid tens of thousands of dollars for or whatever. And so I there's a little bit like, it starts off, so much that was said was just to fill in the gaps while we buried our dead. And that it really felt like that was kind of the mood. But then I didn't want it to just be that. I didn't want it to just be this dark sort of like brooding thing. So instead I thought about it more in terms of being misunderstood. And so there's a line in there about alienating the kids, saying you're not for sale while taking competing bids. And so this idea of like, how do we go about our lives and the way our behavior can be seen and interpreted, whether or not that is either intended or actually the way that it's really happening. And this idea of, but if you recant what you've done, are you forgiven? Do you get another chance? Because we live in a world where everybody is really quick to judge and to shoot people down in the media, online. And I sometimes wonder, like, what are we getting, and are we evolving as a species by doing this? If we're just constantly burying each other. And so that kind of, and the free the singer part, I really thought, like, again, like, we're so burdened by our own history, and the idea of a good singer is somebody who's free themselves from all these burdens. You're just like, you sort of become this disembodied voice. And so this idea that, the singer sort of can be a light over the, apocalyptic landscape. What a bunch of nonsense. I'm sorry about that.
Are you done yet? Are you finished?
These gummies are delicious.
Anything to add on that, Mikey? Than that?
I mean, is there anything else left to say?
I don't know. There may not be any words left in the English language at this point. That was very ornate.
Sorry about that. Really.
It's look, man. Have you heard the Helios Creed episode?
No.
You'll get a contact high. Baltimore Moon is what's next.
Baltimore Moon is a love letter to one of the finest cities in the United States of America. No, truly, their inspiration from it came from after like a show that SAVAK played in Baltimore, this place called Joe Squared, the basement. We played with this really amazing band from, where's Patois Counselor from? They're from North Carolina?
Durham, maybe? Yeah, they're North Carolina.
Durham, yeah.
Played there, and there was pizza grease in the load-in.
Yeah. It's slippery. It's slippery there.
Load-in, yeah. But I like it a lot.
And Quattrocentra, I believe, also played with us as well. Such a cool band. And it was just a really great show that kind of inspired the title of it. The lyrics are kind of just like an existential hodgepodge. I mean, I quote my therapist who told me at one point, don't romanticize humility. I name check Milan Kundera, like lightness of being, and it's just sort of an existential kind of like, where the hell am I in life? And that's basically kind of trying to filter it through like an orange juice kind of, like I don't know, British like post-punk kind of XTC orange juice kind of filter, I guess. I don't know. I feel like we're running down out of time, so I'm trying to like just like hit all the points. Right?
No, this is actually this one and Trash and the Ghost are both songs that for me were surprises, on like positive surprises on the record, because they really, I think they are a different side of the way we write. So the way the songs can turn out often. What are you smirking about?
You're all like, I didn't know you had it in you, Jaws.
No, that's not what I meant. But I was surprised.
I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, this guy actually wrote a good song.
I was complimenting him with the back side of my hand. It was a very strange, and he didn't take it the right way. I don't know. You're talking about recanted. I wasn't done.
Adolescence obsolete.
That I would say is probably the most 154-ish song on the record. Like it there's not a lot of parts to it. Again, it's sort of musically, it's kind of it's constructed in front of you and then deconstructed, and so again, it's just like how things are layered. So the main verses, it's just a stack of single note guitars, and for each verse another note is added. So by the time you get to the last verse, you have the full chord, but each note is being played separately and introduced, every 8 or 16 measures or whatever it is. And this is also, I guess, another sort of pandemic-y song where, I was thinking a lot about the kids who were not in school and they're just at home on their computers in their rooms, and essentially losing this time of just being able to be a kid.
Yeah.
And then I just thought, like, what if our species decides that we don't need that as an evolutionary stage? Like, what if we just decide that, like, being a kid is like, because I feel like we're so oriented towards career and work and all these things, and so it's almost like kids are need to just be like fast tracked to earning, and so the idea was that to have this moment where you've decided that childhood is not important, and then you look back and you're like, well, but if we had that, right. could we bring it back? Could we reinstate this thing?
Yeah. One of my favorite songs, and maybe my favorite song on the record. I was lobbying, like, we need to open the record with this song. I think it's like so powerful. Maybe not the most obvious choice as a record opener, but that was what I was like, this would be such a cool statement to open the song. Didn't open the record with it, but didn't happen.
I forgot that you did that. Yeah, that was a cool idea.
Yeah,
you can maybe do like the how AC/DC has like this Australian version and the US version of
So for the Australian version, we can do this.
Exactly.
Yeah. Looking for Australian labels. Anyone?
Exactly. B2L, band to label personal listings. Dealers.
Dealers is a song that I guess like musically I was kind of trying to mine from like Neil Young, Crazy Horse, Teenage Fan Club, Big Star. Lyrically, it's a pretty dark look into codependency and addiction. And ultimately I feel like it's so easy to fall into these codependent relationships. Fell in love with a dealer baby, found someone who could give me just what I need. Like, we all want to be heard. We all want someone who can listen to us. We all want to feel validated, and it manifests itself in so many different forms, whether it's, heroin is love for people, right? Like we know this to be true. People who are addicted to opioids and heroin in particular, it gives them a feeling of love that they probably might not otherwise get in their life. And I think, there's a lot of analogous sort of, metaphors to relate to that. So that's kind of what it's reflecting upon. So.
I love the guitar solo in this. Jaws' guitar solo is so killer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It really
Thanks.
is. It's like somehow manages to marry like the best Neil Young and like even Richard Thompson. Like it just has this. There's that part in the middle where that. I love it. It's so good.
Thank you.
Last song of the
I was
record.
surprised how much I loved it.
Shocked, even shocked.
I was shocked. It turns out it wasn't me, actually. No.
You got a ringer for that one.
This is my daughter.
Yeah. Anything else for dealers?
No, that's it.
So last song of the record, Dominance.
So there's this Dutch hardcore band from the 80s called BGK, and they had their first EP was called White Male Dominance. And my high school hardcore band, Kids for Cash, named ourselves after a song on that EP. But that word dominance, which as far as I know is not a real word, has just stuck with me forever and ever. And I really like it, particularly actually the white male dominance is such a perfect encapsulation, because to have a word that is a weird version of the word dumb makes it almost even better, and so I kind of took that and was thinking about just all of the awful politicians that we have that, the opening lines are, you walk in a room like a child with a balloon, like they sort of present themselves as if they're giving you a gift. They're bringing you some levity, something that you need. And, really and truly, they're just trying to make your life miserable and make their lives better. And so that's the whole idea of like the watchful eyes of all the sad angels, the wide open lens of widows and orphans. So, as soon as you can see the world through the eyes of somebody who is bereft, then you can sort of see these people for who they are, which is kind of these vultures. But then you sort of have to kind of come to terms with it. You can't depend on
to reconcile it. Yeah.
Yeah. So learn to live with my debts, like I learned to live with all regrets.
That's Doug on that one too, right? If I remember correctly.
It is. And his bass playing on that song, I think that hook is killer.
Anything to add, Mikey?
I did not know the origin story of that word. I love the word dominance, and I think the lyrics of that song are incredible as well. But that's a cool story. Now, I was not aware of that band either. You haven't told me this stuff, so Rob, I need to go check it out now.
Hey, man, next tour, all BGK.
Yeah.
We're educating people left and right here in Protonic Reversal. It's great.
That's right.
So while we were talking about dealers, I was putting my socks on because I do have to go catch the G train.
We know that the men of SAVAK are very busy, and I appreciate the time that you.
But I'll tell you, I think it's relevant to our interests. So I'm going to go see this movie called The Slog, which was a early '80s doc about the LA punk scene.
Oh, fantastic! Cool.
And so it's bands like the Chiefs and Sin 34 and Red Cross when they were with a C before they were.
Oh
K.
yeah.
I talked about. I'm excited to see that. And then there's a Q&A afterwards with the guy Jim Ruland who wrote that SST book, Corporate Rock Sucks. So.
Oh wow.
Very cool. Very
that's
cool.
That's where I'm headed. Just doing some research.
Well, SAVAK.bandcamp.com, Human Error, Human Delights, the record. Gentlemen, thanks so much. Appreciate having you.
Thanks, Conan.
Thank you, Conan.
Hope to see
we
you
appreciate
live.
You, man.
Hope to see you live soon.
That would be great. That would be really terrific.
We can make something happen. And appreciate you. And I think this record's amongst your best. So good on that. Keep doing it.
Thank you.
Not that you were going to wait for my permission to do so, but
can't stop.
The next one's gonna stink. Okay.
Yeah, so exactly. Now that you said that, Jazz Odyssey. Tonight's the night, boys. All right, fellas. Take care.
Right.
Enjoy the
Peace.
movie.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go. Mikey Jaws, Sohrab, SAVAK. Great dudes, great band. Let's hear something off Human Error, Human Delight.
No blues, no jazz, no cities, no states, no arbitrary borders. No districts, no shines, no lives to redraw. No blues, no jazz, no blues, no jazz, no blues, no blues. The value of your attention, the volume of my affection, the comedy of our possession, the callousness of our collection. No blues, no jazz, no counties, no countries, no pledge of allegiance. No birds, no kingdoms, no lies, no blues. The value of your autonomy, the volume of my taxonomy, the comedy of our bureaucracy, the cruelty of our economy. No blues, no jazz, nothing to consider, nothing to construct, nothing to review, nothing to revise. No blues, no point of purchase, no burden of proof, nothing to stockpile, nothing to redeem. No blues, no jazz, 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 no blues. Walk into rooms like a child with a balloon. Yeah, you walk into rooms like a child with a balloon. Dominance, no doubt, consequence. Feel no penitence. I am a supplicant.
Shot by shot, we watched it go to waste. Piece by piece, we put it back in place. Odds maker, you're the only one. Odds maker, 1 million to 1. Drip by drip, we feel it wash away. My head trip, I wanna make you stay. Odds maker, you're the only one. Nothing is sure about it. Nothing is sure. Odds maker, who's your favorite son? Odds maker, you're the only one. One last wish, remove you from my will. One should think I'm dying on this hill. No sure thing about it. No reason left for me to doubt it. No sure thing about 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 it. No sure thing. Odds maker, who's your favorite son? Odds maker, I'm the only one.
Oddsmaker. And before that, we had Dominance.
Is this thing on?
And what did we have before that? I forgot.
Can you hear me now?
All SAVAK. SAVAK. God, I've been saying it wrong. I think it's SAVAK, and I should have maybe sorted that out before let those go. Oh no, of course, yeah, no blues, no jazz before that. Yeah, those songs are on their new record. SAVAK's new record. Human Error / Human Delight. Go to savak.bandcamp.com. Human Error, Human Delight. Go get it. It's good. I quite like it. It just came out. And excited to see those fellas play. You know, they get around. They get around. Recommended. If they play near you, you should see them. It's a solid show. It's really good. We didn't even talk about Matt Schulz, who also played Nina. But
as we come to the close of our broadcast day.
Solid band. So I want to thank those fellas. Sohrab, Michael from SAVAK coming on the show. It's always a pleasure talking to those fellas. The name of the show, of course, is Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. This show airs Thursdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific.
All the ships at sea.
RadioNope.com. Streaming also YouTube,
The sound of my voice.
Twitch. Sometimes Facebook if I feel like it. Not really. These days.
50,000 watts of power.
If you like the show, ProtonicReversal.com. Archives are free. No ads, no sponsors, no kidding. Always available. If you like the show and want to get episodes sooner, you can achieve that goal. Patreon.com/ProtonicReversal. $1 a month will get you there and help support the show as well.
Microphone turns sound into electricity.
The sharing of these episodes
Can you hear me now?
is great. Thank you for doing it.
Out on Route 128.
Stay safe out there
I got my radio on.
and take it easy.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? That snare drum and that drum roll means we've got a winner. If you're the fifth caller, or any caller at all, welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. There is no special girl. It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Is it really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive? It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, got my radio on. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? This is a test! If this had been a real emergency, hey! This is a real goddamn